have walked in the shadows, I haven't walked in the light. I have searched for the answers to the meaning of life. I have searched the world over till I was tired and disgraced, to walk out of the shadows, to walk with God's grace. Here I go once again, down that old lonely road. Here I go once again, I can see. Here I go once again, once again. I have traveled across the oceans to far off distant shores. I have seen the face of horror of all-out bloody wars. I have seen the stricken faces, and now I see them in my dreams. And I pray to our God to set my soul free. Here I go once again, down that old lonely road. Here I go once again, I can see. Here I go once again. I have carried my burden, I have cuddled my pain, and I have
connection established.
Mr.B and friends march on so bold, searching for secrets hidden in the fold. Under the vows where shadows creep, the truth awaits and mysteries deep. Voices call out from the shadows hold, stories untold where courage is gold, exposing the lies that bind the free, expanding horizons for all to see. Voices call out from the shadows hold, whistle are we leaving a mark? No more silence, the truth shall seal. With every step, the wounds will heal. Courageous hearts in unity stand. With revelations, the world is planned. There's fallen away like dust in the breeze. Truth sets us free, we'll never repeat. Rise, lift your eyes. Break the chains darkness defies. Shine the light, uncover what's right, for all to see in the dead of night. Rise, lift your eyes. Break the chains darkness defies. Shine the light, uncover what's right, for all to see in the dead of night. In the dead of night. In the dead of night.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Mr.B here, and welcome. Do you know what? A beautiful sunny day here in the morning in Western Australia. It's 7 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. And yes, blue skies, birds chirping, everything's happening outside. And here I am stuck in the studio here, and I've got some wonderful guests. First of all, I'm going to bring online Mr. Jim Goodall. Good morning or good evening to you there, Jim. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? How's it going? Let me move my, get a little bit more light in here.
Yeah, well, just let everybody know Jim Goodall is ex-Air Force Sergeant, was it?
Retired Air Force, not ex.
Oh,
retired.
Yeah. Oh, okay, retired.
Shame on you. Okay. Shame on you.
No, shame. I know. Well, retired Senior Sergeant. And also his aeronautical historian as well, with many books up his sleeve. How many books do you have up your sleeve now, Jim? I think
there's 28 in print. I'm just trying to finish my 29th. I've been trying to finish it for 10 years, but the Navy, and then the federal government with their lockdowns, put a crimp into it. But I made my initial request at the end of 2015 to get on a arsenal boat, the 560-foot long.
Right.
The four earliest Ohio ballistic missile submarines were converted to arsenal boats, and I have.
Okay, Jim, just give me a moment and let me bring on our next guest.
No.
Yeah, I know, mate.
He's my very dear friend. Yeah.
You're doing a Robert. You're hugging the microphone now. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, what else is new?
Anyway,
right?
And good morning to you.
There he is.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to be with you guys.
Hey,
well, welcome on board.
Good to see you, Jim.
Yeah, I've been trying to find some a few minutes here and there to jump in my car and head out and give you a visit.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But it seems like every time I turn around, there's something else that's keeping me here. So
yeah,
I probably won't come out to Southern Cal until after the 1st.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
Because
anyway, it's not good traveling during the silly season anyhow. So
no, this is true. This is true. Yeah, and I got 500 miles to Michael's place. So
yeah,
well,
that makes
actually, you do realize, Jim, in Australia, that's only just down the road.
Well, I mean, it's here too. I mean, if you look at the map of the Western United States, my closest major airport is 90 minutes away.
Hmm.
That's up in Phoenix. Tucson is sort of a pretend airport.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, places I want to go, I can get a connecting flight.
Is it Tucson Airport's the one with all the graphics on the wall with the Armageddon graphics? You know, people wearing gas
No,
masks and
that's
things?
Denver. That's Denver.
That's Denver, is it? No, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm only a humble Australian, you know.
Yeah, and I've only been through the new Denver airport, as I call it, since when I was stationed at Lowry Air Force Base in Denver. We had parallel runways to Stapleton, which was the main airport at the time. You had Lowry Air Force Base with a north-south run or east-west runway. You had Colfax Avenue, which is an east-west road, and then Stapleton, which is an east-west runway, and Buckley, about 6 or 7 miles to the east, as a east-west runway. And this is way back in the day when I was still stationed there. There was a 727 coming on final into Stapleton, and he says, "Hey, what the hell? You got cars on the road. What are cars doing? Oh my God, they're stopping. Where the hell am I?" And the guys in the tower says, "Oh, I think you're trying to land on Colfax." And about I guess about 2 months later, and this is now winter, middle of the winter, another United airplane landed at what they thought was Stapleton, pulled up to the terminal. And he said, "There's only one building here. It's not very big. Where are the luggage stuff, people and whatever?" And my roommate was up in the tower, and hey, there's the brothers, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he looks out from the tower, looks down, and contacts the United flight, and he said, "You landed at Lowry Air Force Base. It's 3:15 in the morning, and the runways generally closes about 1 a.m. So the guys were all panicked, and they needed a start card or whatever to ground stuff to start the engine. So they were stuck there. They had to bus everybody from Lowry. It was only about 6 or 7 miles to Stapleton. It was funny, but I have our airport here in Tucson area it's a small one. It has 2 concourses. You can park it the farthest way in the place in the regular parking lot. And if you have a good arm, not a swing, but a good arm, you could hit the terminal with a baseball. So it's not very big, but it's ours. Yeah. So, Michael, what have you been up to?
Putting together a presentation for tonight, keeping the crash retrievals going, keeping the dream alive.
Okay. Are you?
Hey, it's good to see the cousin brothers on board there.
Yeah.
Viewing, spying on us.
Yeah.
Actually, I like the cousin brothers. One
Two
thing about the cousin brothers.
2 of their favorite people are on your program.
Oh, listen. One thing about them, I do respect. As much as they get the documentaries out, they stick to their grassroots. They do their everyday show sort of thing, showing UFOs and everything. It's very time consuming what they do, and they put their time into it.
But they're good at it.
A lot of respect for people. They are good at it. I'll tell you that now.
They've been in my place here in Oro Valley, Arizona, 4 times now. And I've been up there, into Hawaii a couple times, and
it's only because of the weed, Jim.
Well, no, I get good weed everywhere nowadays. So, but I've seen them do it. Interview me, do some other stuff, go outside, do some drone work, come back in, and within an hour they have a finished 10 or 15-minute segment with music and fade-ins and fade-outs. I don't know how the hell they do it, but it's probably drugs. So,
oh well. Anyway, listen, I'm going to put it over to Michael, and I'm sure he's got lots of presentations to show us, and actually, I'm looking forward to it. Actually, so if you'd like to bring it up, Michael,
Okay.
and I'll bring them up on the screen.
Sure. Let's
and I'll,
see if we can do this here. Present, share screen. Okay, window, and we'll go. I guess we'll go
there we
here.
go. There we go.
Entire screen, share. Okay. Let's try this. Present, share screen, window. Is this going to work?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see here. Now, you're seeing this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys seeing this?
Yep.
Yeah. You are?
All I
Okay.
Just a bunch of W's.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you see this PowerPoint?
No.
Well,
No, you don't see the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Interesting. Let me go here. Stop sharing. Present. Share screen. Window. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, we've had just a hell of a time just Terry trying to send me a link.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what the hell and he tried it on three different ways. Facebook Messenger, nothing. My Area 51, nothing. My Vet Ran Sport, nothing.
Screen.
So
window. Here we go. This should do it. Okay. How about this? You guys see?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Success.
Okay, and it's full screen, right?
Yeah. Well, I can. Yep. Well,
pretty much full screen. Okay.
Make it full screen.
Hold it. What's going on? Something's going on. Where are we? What's going on? I've lost everything.
And I think you should be able to make it full screen on your end here.
I don't know. I just seem to have lost it. Add item.
Let's see. I'm tracking on my end. I'm definitely tracking on my end.
Yeah, I got it here.
You got it here? Okay.
I have the whole thing, but I have the three of us off to the left.
Okay, that's what I'm seeing too.
Yeah.
So, is everybody on board here?
Yeah.
I see you, but
okay.
But I can't see.
You can't see the slides, huh?
No, something's going wrong. There's been a lot of technical issues, guys. Sorry about this.
Well, it's good. It's good that you're here, Jim, because I think you're the perfect person to critique this.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
The timing is uncanny, and I invite you to chime in on this, comment on this, critique this in every way possible. I really do. I want to get your input on this. And hopefully everyone can see the slides here. So what we want to do is I want to talk about Edgar Fouché and this whole concept behind the TR3B. This has been coming up for decades now. And it was really Edgar Fouché who broke the story about the TR3B. So I want to talk about how I got to this presentation. Edgar Fouché was good friends with a friend of mine named Dan Bankert. They had been talking for quite some time. And in 1998, Edgar Fouché gave a lecture at IUFOC, and he broke the story about the TR-3B, the SR-75, hypersonic aircraft, two-stage orbit spaceplane. A lot of these concepts were kind of like breaking within the field here. Years later, Edgar Fouché donates his original slide collection that he gave at the IUFOC back in 1998 to Dan, and he's had it for all this time. Recently, Dan stated that he said, Mike, I want you to have this original slide collection. So what you see here on the slide here is Edgar Fouché's original 1998 slide presentation with all the original slides. And I was so grateful and thankful to receive this collection from my archives. So I started scanning this in. I had to buy a scanner, you see off to the right here, and all these had to be scanned in at 600 DPI, one at a time. And if anyone wants to follow along on Ed's original presentation, I've got the link below here. So what you're going to see here is a one-to-one track. But what I've done is I've got rid of the extraneous information. I deleted things that were duplicates. Some things were fractured and scattered. I kind of combined everything. And then, of course, I had to put my little thing on it. So I gave lots of new references, newspaper articles, descriptions, references, page numbers, additional information, and illustrations. I really wanted to make this my own, but I also wanted to maintain the integrity of what Ed originally wanted. So let's continue on here. A couple things about his background, and certainly chime in whenever you want to, Jim. So he started out as a machinist making bombs for the U.S. Air Force. He worked on projects for the Department of Defense for 25 years, was drafted in Vietnam conflict between 1967 and 1974. He worked at multiple Pacific bases, expertise in intelligence, equipment, electronics, black programs, and cryptological applications. DoD factory representative, engineering manager for multiple defense contractors on classified black programs developing state-of-the-art electronic countermeasure systems. In a nutshell, that is his background. Let's continue on here.
Okay.
So this is the kind of work that he was involved in, electronic countermeasures. These are his original slides. Edgar worked on multiple programs dating back to the 1970s, which are still classified. Now, he passed away about 7 years ago. So what we're doing here is we're just preserving his legacy. Received over 4,000 hours of technical training from the U.S. government, which approximately half are classified. He spent 20 years working directly for the U.S. Air Force and the DoD. Edgar's involvement with stealth aircraft programs is still classified to this day. So some of the things that he was working on, they're still kept under wraps. Edgar wrote the book Alien Rapture, The Chosen, back in 1994 to 1995 with information he gathered about classified programs for a very small group of 5 close friends. These were test pilots, engineers, and investigators. So what he did, working for 20 years in black programs, he developed a number of contacts within the military industrial complex. And these were engineers, test pilots, there were other sources. And once a year, they would get together and they would kind of share stories. And so the book is essentially an homage to his 5 friends that kind of fed him this information here. Mm-hmm. So who made up the group of 5 friends that helped Edgar write the book? We want to talk about this. One of them, one of Edgar's contacts worked at the Department of Energy and the National Security Agency as an investigator and had years of experience at Area 51. He was also a treat team member, Tactical Reconnaissance Engineering Assessment Team. He monitored employees who had Q clearances at Nevada Test Site, Los Alamos, and Sandia National Labs. So, Jim, have you heard of this treat team?
I've heard of it, but that's all I have. And the a Q clearance for civilians is the same as top secret and above for military.
Okay. All right.
So that's what I mean. I had a top secret and higher clearance for 27 years. And during those 27 years, I was hoping I would find something that was, gee whiz, holy shit, right. What in the hell's that? Right. And it never happened. Really? I was so disappointed. I mean, I was during Desert Shield and Desert Storm, it was my job. I was activated. I was the Pentagon. And I worked in a vault, and every morning I came in and I had to read absolutely every single message going to and from CENTCOM. Mm-hmm. And not once did I hear a reference to TR3B or anything that wasn't already known.
Yeah.
The only message that was sent that really raised the hair on my arms and the back of my neck was from Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
And that's I think it was a text, or it was teletype to, this is before texting and internet. And it was to Saddam Hussein, and it was from Margaret Thatcher, at the time Prime Minister of Great Britain. And it basically said, President Hussein, if for any reason you use chemical, biological, or nuclear agents on the coalition forces or your own people, period, and that was spelled out, period, the United Kingdom will retaliate with a full-fledged nuclear strike on Baghdad within 24 hours. Signed, Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
With full concurrence of Parliament. And every time you mention, I get goosebumps.
She wasn't playing around, huh?
Oh boy, she had more cojones than most of the people in power today. One of the obvious exceptions is, of course, our soon-to-be 47th president. So, but it was interesting. But I didn't see anything, and I was hoping. I mean, I was seeing eyes only stuff, and I'm looking for little tidbits of UFO, something coming up, and nothing. I mean, if the president saw it, I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it before he saw it, because I'm on the same lane. But the thing that was really freaky, my job, besides going through and pulling everything out that's associated with Guard Bureau, either Air National Guard or Army Guard, I was also responsible for giving afternoon briefings to CNN. That was the only national news source at the time. And I'm listening to CNN in the vault, and I'm reading a classified document that just arrived. And I'm looking at it, and I'm hearing it being read, not necessarily word for word, but 95% of the words were there as you're going. Someone was getting, at CNN, was getting the same messages I was getting on a classified system. So I don't know how that happened, but that's what I did. But never once. And I was really hoping, and the message from Margaret Thatcher was not classified. I mean, there's a whole list of people he was going to, but I really wanted to, but I just couldn't. My upbringing and my strong feelings on security wouldn't let me.
Right.
But that was the only thing in the 121 days I was activated there at Guard Bureau. That was the only thing I saw that went, oh wow, this is incredible. But
hey, Tommy, do you guys believe that the patent office in the US actually received documentation for patents for the TR3B? Is that being clarified, or is as legit, or what? I don't know. I mean,
I don't either.
You can't believe everything you see or read on the internet, as you know. Oh
no! Tell me that's not true.
Yeah, a lot of you're foolishing out there, but yeah, I've been reading stuff about the TR3B saying that it's actually been put in the patent by the US Navy. So
yeah, there was a YouTube video that was, I think you can still find it, and it was the TR3A, and it was a triangle, and it was powered by it was about a 3.5 foot wingspan on it, and it was Teledyne Ryan who was making it, who built the model. And they also build drones. They were responsible for building Global Hawk and all the Ryan drones that were used in Vietnam and stuff. So they had that level of expertise, but that was kind of weird when everybody's looking for the TR3B, that all of a sudden you get something coming up at TR3A, They're the same shape. I mean, they're the same dimension, the same ratio as far as the triangle goes. So,
with disclosure, I mean, what's happening in the Congress and everything at the moment, and I mean, every time they talk about Congress, I mean, it really gives me a headache thinking about it.
It gives me a headache too. Yeah.
It's also been sensationalized. This time it's going to happen, but it never happens. It just fizzles out. I get the sense that it's such an open subject that everything is classified. So what we need to do, and how I feel what should be the way they should be approaching it, is asking a question. Let's ask a question. Did 1933 really happen in Italy? Was there really a crashed UFO? I want to know. Now, telling us the truth doesn't hurt. I mean, I'm all for national security. I mean, let's face it, if you've got high-tech stuff from a downcraft, I understand the fact that, yes, it should be kept top secret, because as much as it could be beneficial to society, we can't help ourselves but to weaponize it. I mean, that's the way of mankind. We rush supersonically into self-destruction, hypersonically now into self-destruction, I mean, so these technologies, yes, should be kept secret, but the fact is we should be made aware, yes, Roswell did happen. Yes, there was a downcraft also too in 1933 in northern Italy. And yes, this and that. Yes, we have got intelligent biological entities, That's fine. That's the truth. People have to know. People have to get over it and get on with their lives. Will it be the downfall of ufology? I think it will actually get rid of a lot of the deadwood. But good researchers, knowing how to navigate their way through the system, will prevail.
I think it's a renaissance of ufology if that happens.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. I totally agree.
I mean, there seems to be an awful lot of movement both within the Congress critters, and I have little or no respect for a majority of them. Oh yeah, there's the Robert. Now you're alive, huh, Robert?
Hello, Robert.
Are we going to do something Saturday or not? So,
you better. I'm going to be there with my geezer. I'll have my geezer geeks hat on. So,
yeah.
We do. Yes, Michael. We do a Saturday geezer geek show. So,
okay. All right, so let's we'll continue on here. We'll continue on here. The second friend worked directly for the National Security Agency. Ooh, this is interesting. Okay, in the field of electronic intelligence, and became a defense contractor after retirement. So that's friend number 2. Another of Ed's contacts was a former SR-71 pilot and test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base.
Did he say who?
He mentioned first names only.
What was the first name?
I'd have to go back and check.
Oh, okay.
But that's on my cap. The fourth friend joined Ed in the Vietnam War. The fifth friend was a DoD contractor and electronics engineer. He worked on top secret development programs involving ECM jammers and infrared receivers. So those are the 5 friends here. Additional information for the book came from 4 SR-71 pilots, 2 U-2 pilots, 1 TR-1 pilot, and approximately 24 fighter bomber pilots. So in totality, that's where the information for the book came from. Okay. So Ed met with his friends at the Silver Dollar Saloon in Las Vegas to formulate a plan to write a book which could preserve the experiences dealing with top secret classified programs while also protecting their identity and security. So you can see they were having this a little bit of a challenge. How do we get this information out that we've been working on, but how do we do it in a way that won't violate national security? So that's the whole concept behind this book here. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. One of Ed's friends related to him an in-flight incident that occurred in the 1970s, which involved a ball of plasma that circled his SR-71 while he was flying at 74,000 feet at Mach 3. And so this plasma ball would circle around the Blackbird. and it would park itself off the left inlet spike while this thing is going at Mach 3, which is approximately 2,100 miles an hour. Jim, are you aware of this case?
No. I'm aware of SR-71 pilot chasing a UFO, but and being left in the dust. But there's ball lightning that have been circled airplanes, commercial aircraft in the past, going at Mach 3. Yeah, it is. It's 3,200 feet per second, so you're really moving through the air pretty fast.
Yeah.
So
I just thought that was interesting. Let's continue on here. The mysterious orb parked itself directly in front of the inlet spike of the SR-71. So if you look on the left spike where the arrow is, that's where this thing was. So it sounds like there was an intelligence behind this. It just sounds that way. Let's continue on here. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the last 24 hours on these plasmoids that have been seen all around the country and now all around the world. And there are some, underline some, who conclude the following. They are a being. They are alive. They are aware. They are responsive. They have senses. They perceive. I'm just saying that there are some who believe this. Let's continue on. Now, if you look at the scientific publications, this is Journal of Modern Physics, October 20th, 2024. This has recently come to forward here. I'm going to go to the next slide. And what they talk about is NASA space shuttles. We'll go back one here. So unidentified anomalous phenomenon, extraterrestrial life, plasmoids, shapeshifters, replicons, thunderstorms, lightning hallucinations, aircraft disasters, ocean sightings. And they go into detail on this. Now, however, there's a problem with this document. It's not a peer-reviewed document, and it doesn't, some of these names here don't check out. So I just want to provide this as something to consider as well. Now, when you talk to the people within the scientific community, they absolutely equivocally say that these are not sentient beings. This is something that's naturally occurring, and this is something that can replicate and duplicate within the laboratory environment. That's their background on this. So what is a plasmoid? A plasmoid is a coherent structure with a plasma. A plasma is an ionized gas. They can occur naturally or they can be formed in a laboratory. Scientists do not suspect that plasmoids are sentient. There are no scientists that suspect that a plasmoid is a sentient being. Okay, now, also want to highlight that this isn't the first time something like this was seen, right? If we go back in history, World War II, 1945, we had Allied B-17 pilots, Allied B-24 Liberator pilots flying over Germany and Europe, and they were encountering these Foo Fighters. So this is Newcastle Sun, January 3rd, 1945. Foo Fighters are latest. Tuesday, pilots flying over Germany at night report that strange balls of fire are following them around on their missions. They have christened these strange phenomenon Foo Fighters. And so this is what our B-24 Liberator pilots were encountering during World War II, and B-17 pilots as well. So this is nothing new. This has been going on a long time. There could be a Third Reich contingent to this. That's something that we can certainly talk about later. Now, continuing on. So you've got this plasmoid ball right in front of the inlet spike of the Blackbird at Mach 3. It's circling around this thing. And then when it reaches the area of Beale Air Force Base, this thing takes off. So, Jim, could you talk a little bit about Beale Air Force Base, home of the Blackbird and the U-2?
Yeah, Beale is about 50 miles, maybe 60 miles north of Sacramento, California. Okay. It's really all out. It's in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. There's just a lot of open fields. They grow a lot of rice up in that area. And it is, I mean, it's one of the loudest airplanes ever to fly is the Blackbird. So they initially started out as a Army camp. They trained, they had a camel unit stationed there way back when.
Oh, wow.
And why they were raising camels, I don't know. But and then it became a Titan 1 location, and it wasn't until the Titan 1s that were being phased out, that they needed a home for the Blackbird. They couldn't operate out of Area 51 anymore because the program was going public.
Okay.
So the one place that had the real estate was Beale Air Force Base. I was, I've been there probably a dozen times. I've been all over the base, and there's a lot of, you can get lost on that base, especially at night. It's a big base, and it's a long way from Marysville, even though it's right next to Marysville, California. It's still quite some, distance away.
So the Blackbird was based here along with the U-2. Jim, over the years, have you heard of any other classified asset aerospace vehicle that might have been based or stationed temporarily at Beale?
No, and I've had friends there almost since the first Blackbird arrived there.
Okay.
And no one has ever mentioned anything other than the Blackbird and, of course, the U-2s, the Dragon Ladies, as they call them.
Okay.
And then the only program that was highly classified that operated out of Beale was the D-21 program for Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And that was the Mach 3.7 drone that was initially going to be launched off a modified A-12 Blackbird, and they called it the M21. They built two of them. One of them was involved in a midair collision at 80,000 feet going Mach 3.1. And the drone launched, went up. They figure it went through a bow wake and then came crashing back down on top of the Blackbird. Bill Park, who was the pilot, thought he was having a shift in the aft center of gravity, so he gave it some forward stick. But he said when things started going past him this way, he knew that wasn't a good sign.
That's right.
So they rode the forward fuselage down. It broke right where the wing chine starts. You have the fuselage chine, and then it goes out to the inner wing. That's where it broke. That's the 715 splice. And they rode Bill Park and Ray Torek rode the forward fuselage down as it's tumbling and twirling from 80,000 feet to about 65,000 feet. Bill Park told me, he says, I always stayed in the airplane until it was safer not to be in the airplane.
Sure.
So that's when he bailed. He informed Ray to bail out, and he was, and they both bailed out. One of the issues that was an ongoing issue that was never resolved. There was a lot of guys at the test site, better known as Area 51, were saying that there was a camera bracket in the launch control officer's cockpit because they were using another M21. They're using 940 to be the photo chase for 941, which was the airframe number 135, which was the one that launched the 4 drones. And on the 4th launch, it had a midair collision. But they were saying that if someone had to eject out of the back seat, there's a good chance they would break their arm. And sure shooting, Ray Torek, who was a UDT, underwater demolition specialist. Today it's called Navy SEALs. When he ejected, he broke his arm on the way out. He survived the midair collision. He ejected. That part went okay. He separated from the seat okay. And when he hit the water on the Pacific Ocean, they're about 200 miles off the coast of Ventura, there in Southern California, part of the Pacific Missile Range. He couldn't get into his life raft. Bill Park, who was fully intact, didn't have a broken arm. When he hit the water, he said he tried a half a dozen times to get into the life raft. First, his hands are frozen because they were coming down. It was 70 below zero.
Yeah.
And he was getting exhausted. Then he realized he had water about halfway up his calf. And he knew if he didn't get in this time, he was dead. And he said from the end of his toenails to the end of his hair follicles, every ounce of energy he had, and he let out a scream and he pulled himself in. And a couple of weeks later, after they realized how and why Ray Torek was killed, they went out to shit. I can't. I'm trying to. Lake Mead. I don't know why it didn't come to my head. They went to Lake Mead. They went to a quiet cove, and they had 4 or 5 frogmen in the water. They had a Blackbird, it was CIA, A-12 pilot in a helicopter, and he just jumped out just like he was going to land in the water from like Ray Torek did. And it was dead calm. He landed in the water, but he said if it hadn't been for, this is Mel Valvidis told me that. He's one of the agency pilots. He said if it wasn't for the swimmers and the divers in the water, said he would have probably drowned. So they realized that even in a swimming pool, you only had about 2 inches of freeboard from the end, the lip of your opening to your face mask, and once the main chute opens and you're coming down, you're out of oxygen. So you open up the visor, so you can breathe real air, and that happens at 15,000 feet. But there wasn't enough flotation to allow them to successfully get into the life raft. Okay. So they changed that. That was changed immediately. So when Blair Bozick and I can't remember who his the front seater, who the pilot was, when they lost 972, which was Christian 974, which was Ichiban. That was the last one that was lost. Happened in April of it's 80 or 80 something, I forget. They survived the ejection, even though they landed in the water because they had adequate flotation. So, all right, next.
Okay, excellent. Okay, through his multiple contacts, Ed eventually collected approximately 24 accounts of plasma spheres interacting with military aircraft. So this isn't the first time or an isolated incident by any means here. Beale Air Force Base loses SR-71 spy plane. The Press Tribune, November 22nd, 1989. Let's continue on. The Atlanta Constitution, March 11th, 1989. Couple of quick points I want to highlight here. So first red arrow, Lockheed built SR-71 Blackbird spy plane, successor to the fabled U-2, because of defense budget priorities. Okay, so they're talking about retiring the Blackbird. And then they say, officials estimate that clipping the Blackbird's wings will save $300 million annually, talking about shutting down the Blackbird program and saving $300 million. Jim, do you want to comment on the tooling and the big warehouse where they had the tooling and what happened to the tooling?
Well, yeah. The Air Force ordered all the tooling cut up and destroyed. They didn't, they didn't want that airplane. And I don't. The reason why the program was canceled when it was Jerry O'Malley was Air Force Chief of Staff. He was the first blue suitor to fly an operational mission in an SR-71. It was May of 68. And he loved the Blackbird. His number 2 guy, the deputy to the Air Force Chief of Staff, was General Larry Welsh. Larry Welsh was turned down to fly the Blackbird when he was, I think, a major. He wasn't a good enough pilot. So he hated the program from day one. And when Jerry O'Malley was killed in a CT-37 crash out of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, CT-39 had CT-39 Saberliner. If both the pilot and the guy in the left seat or the right seat are hitting or pumping the brakes, they more or less neutralize each other. And the CT-39 went off the end of the runway down into ravine, killing General O'Malley, his 2 military officers, and his wife. And immediately Larry Welsh became Air Force Chief of Staff because he was next in line. And I didn't get a copy of it, but I saw a memo of a buddy of mine who was stationed at Offutt, headquarters of Strategic Air Command, also known as SAC. And it was a text, it was a Twix, I guess you call it, from Larry Welsh to everybody in the Strategic Air Command in a position of authority. If for any reason anyone under my command says anything negative about the Blackbird, I will applaud you, basically is what he said.
Really?
But if
Really?
anybody
Wow.
that works for me or under me says anything positive about the Blackbird, whether you're an E1 or an O10, I'll fire you.
Well, I find it very difficult to say anything discouraging about the Blackbird program, Jim.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And
someone doesn't have a vision here.
And you know, the Blackbirds, well, they're expensive. No, they're paid for. They were paid for when they were delivered. The GIs that fly them and the guys that work on them are paid 24 hours a day, whether they're cleaning pots and pans or whether they're taking the engine out of an SR-71. The the money that I don't know how they allocate these X number of $250,000 an hour to fly the Blackbird. Well, you have an exotic airplane that gets the job done. No one's ever been able to shoot it down. If the Israelis couldn't, and they tried multiple times during the '73 war, then there's no way in hell anybody else had a chance in hell to shoot it down. So the program, and again, I don't know how you say, well, it will save $300 million annually. They flew about 1.5 times a month, sometimes a little bit more, depending on their missions. The only thing that they're paying for is fuel and consumables. Everything is already bought and paid for. When it's delivered to the military or to the federal government, the contractor has been paid, and you basically have the certificate of title. So it was canceled because of butthurt feelings from General Larry Welsh.
Wow. Wow. And ballpark figure, Jim, how much was scrapped in the tooling ballpark figure?
Well, he sold it for 7 cents a pound. And it was all hard tooling. So, I mean, we're talking
Pentagon price prior to, what was the original Pentagon price?
It was probably all the tooling was in adjusted for inflation was probably $100 million worth of tooling.
Okay, all right.
Hey Jim, is it true that the SR-71 leaked a lot of fuel?
Oh, geez, yeah. During training operations, they would put 40,000 pounds of fuel in the airplane. Now the airplane, if you want to go to gallons. I'm not sure how many, it's probably 6,000 gallons. No, 600 gallons, I think it is. And during combat operations, they put in 60,000 pounds just in case they had problems with one of the tankers. So you would, even during peacetime training operations, if you walked into the hangar shortly after an SR-71 had left the barn, you're sloshing in JP7. It leaks like a sieve from starting in engines until liftoff. You go through 8,000 pounds of fuel.
Wow!
And about half of that is leaked. But it's not It's non-flammable. You could take a blowtorch to it and just put it on there, and it won't do anything. It takes a chemical igniter to light it. But the first public appearance outside of California or Beale Air Force Base or Edwards of a Blackbird was at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. And it was a really big thing. And they had these big pans they put underneath the airplane because it leaks. I mean, you can literally, when it's fully leaked, when it's fully fueled, it would be like someone's on top of each wing with a garden hose turned up all the way. It's just literally, it's just pouring fuel.
Jim, you're so good. You're so good, Jim.
Yeah.
Can you spend 30 seconds to tell us what the aura about the Blackbird? There's something otherworldly about the Blackbird. What is the drive? It has a certain mystique about it. Can you talk about
it's Jim's love and passion, I tell you that now.
Yeah. Even today, if you were to see the Blackbird for the very first time, all you would do, and if you love airplanes, you would go, I mean, your mouth would just drop. Holy shit! What is that? Is incredible. Yet it was developed. They started working on 1958.
Yeah,
that's a long time ago.
So 3 years after the first flight of the U-2, Kelly was starting to think about this one, huh?
Kelly knew that the U-2 would be vulnerable. He figured I think he figured it would get shot down in the first year flying over the Soviet Union. But the first official flight of a U-2 was on 4th of July, 1956. And they were flying U-2s out of Pakistan. And those are the ones that were flying. No, those are agency airplanes. And those are the ones that were overflying the Soviet Union. The day that Francis Gary Powers was shot down, which was May 1st, 1960, the airplane that he was supposed to fly had a problem during pre-flight. So they axed that airplane. And normally you go with the airplane. But Powers said, no, says, I haven't, I've been through all the briefing, I've done the breathing and everything else. I'll fly it. Let's go take off at a normal time. So there's some speculation, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was Powers' roommate in Pakistan, in Peshawar. And he said it was rumored that there was a destruct system in the U-2, and it had it was told that it had a 10 or 15 second delay. But everybody who dealt with on the program who flew them in country, they all didn't want to take that risk because they said they knew it had explosive cord on the airplane to destroy it, so the Russians couldn't get to it. But it's people just felt that there was no delay in the destruction. So when you flipped the switch up to arm it, it was going to go boom. But the thing about Powers, there was no ejection seat on the early U-2s, and he had an unstart or flame out, and the high altitude relight system wasn't working properly, and it was gaseous hydrogen off of a liquid hydrogen dewar. And he said he had to drop from 70,000 feet down to about 35,000 feet in denser air to start the engine. And he finally got it started, and he was on his way up. And they go up on an angle of attack about 40 degrees. I mean, they're heading to the heavens. The indicated airspeed red line is 158 knots on the U-2.
Okay.
But at 70,000 feet, at 520 miles an hour, you're still below that 185 mile an hour knot window, and that's how when you're going up to altitude, that's how you know how back you hold the stick. You're watching the indicated airspeed, and it's U-2 still flying today. I mean, that just shows you what kind of
genius Kelly was.
Yeah, that Kelly Johnson and his team of engineers had. So it's really quite it's still today quite an airplane, the Dragon Lady.
All right, let's continue on here. So talking about saving 300 million. Here we've got Pentagon fails 7th audit in a row, unable to fully account for 824 billion. This is very current. This is November 17th, 2024. So I know we're separated by time and space here with this article, but just to show that how can they lose $824 billion? And here we're getting upset that we're getting rid of the Blackbirds at 300 million. That's chunk change. That's coffee at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Gold toilet seats. Gold toilet seats.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a $700 toilet seat is justified because I mean, when I worked for a company, it was a French company. We dealt with distributed performance measuring systems for mainframes, the supercomputers and whatever. And we had to source where the raw materials came from in a paper trail for just and these are stupid things. They weren't anything that was for the prevention of loss and limb to a pilot or to somebody. And it was just administrative crap. And I know that's what Elon and Vivek are going to try to get rid of, is a lot of the crap that they've thrown on everything. I don't care what you do. Anything you do with the federal government, it's going to be a nightmare. And what Elon says, he wants to be known as the volunteer IT specialist. He said, because they're still running systems in the Pentagon using 8-inch floppy disks.
Oh no! Wow, that's crazy. Oh no!
And when I was as early,
I find that hard to believe somehow. I mean, I don't. Sorry,
no, it's the federal government. It's easy to believe. I mean,
right, okay.
Yeah, it's so there's a reason, because the systems are so antiquated and break down, and people don't know, new people coming in don't know how to use them, and they what needs to have happen for the Pentagon specifically is the replacement of everything that tracks dollars. That they need something that has a modern day, built, manufactured, and designed sometime this century versus the last century, and that's the only way they're gonna be able to account for all the money spent. And you look at the critters in Congress, and someone asked me what I do if I came by and I saw a Congress person on fire. I take pictures, post them. But even if I had a pee, I wouldn't help them put out the fire. I mean, I just have. There's a few of them in there I like. And
you wouldn't have fuel. You wouldn't have fuel at all.
No.
Just take photos. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll continue on here. Was there another aerospace asset waiting in the wings that could replace the Blackbird? So we want to explore that a little bit here. So this is the commercial appeal, May 4th, 1986. Aerospace planes taxi across the drawing board. New hybrid engines may hurl commercial jets past Mach 5. I'm going to go to the blow up here. And so they talk about the 3 different propulsion systems. On the bottom, you've got turbojet. So that's your standard F-18s, F-14s. Then at the very top, you've got ramjets. So that's kind of borderline Pratt & Whitney J-58. And then the new propulsion system, the scramjet, supersonic combustion ramjet, that's where we're getting into this very high speed Mach 5 and above where there's no moving parts. Jim, you want to comment on this?
Well, yeah, they did. There was a lot of money being spent. They even had a launch fixture being built at Edwards when the I think it was the X-30 was the civilian version of it. but it was, for whatever reason, they canceled it. But in 1982 or 83 at the Prom Center in St. Paul, Minnesota, this was February of 82 or 83, I was invited as a guest from the director of engineering at Honeywell Avionics, which is the military division there at Honeywell. We call it Ridgeway. And the keynote speaker was Kelly Johnson. Mm-hmm. Now, this is 45 years ago. And he's basically said, or he actually said, today we have the ability to fly to Mach 4, because there was some questions, can the SR fly faster? He said, it possibly could. We're not going to do it because it's not worth the effort to change the airframe. Right. But he said, today we have the ability to fly to Mach 4, Mach 6, Mach 8, Mach 12, Mach 16 in a manned air-breathing platform.
Okay.
And then he said, speed costs money. How fast do you want to go?
Okay.
And that was a saying they used in top fuel drag racing. Speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? So 45 years ago, Kelly Johnson, probably the most influential person ever to have anything to do with aerospace, said that we had the ability to fly a manned air-breathing platform up to Mach 16, in our atmosphere.
Okay.
But it costs money. So it was, NASA should be relegated just to improving commercial aerospace versus all this other crap they're into. I mean, you look at the returning to the moon and with the Ares 2 super rocket, and whether they're 5 years behind, they had one launch, it wasn't satisfactory, and they're not going to have another one for another 3 or 4 years. And in 2006, the first Falcon 9 launched, and in 2024, Elon Musk has shown that he can have rockets that have gone up in space 20 plus times. And the other thing, he was able to catch a 200-ton super rocket. He was able to catch it on its way home, and and it could be reused. I mean, it's just NASA needs to get the hell out of going to aviation safety, stuff for commercial aviation, not for space flight, not for all the other crap they have their fingers into. Yeah. The federal government is not good at it. Let's pay someone like Elon or even Jeff Bezos or whomever to go where no one has gone before.
If you don't mind me asking, Jim, how much G-force can a human body stand?
Well, I can't remember. He's a Air Force captain. I think his last name was Brown. He's been on rocket sleds, and he's gone to 40 Gs. I mean, it looked like his face smashed into a brick wall, because there was actually they're actually high speed I think 16 millimeter film of him going up on a rocket slide. But the F-16 is redlined at 9 Gs. The computer won't let you go past 9 Gs, except the Israelis went in, changed the software, and they were pulling 12 Gs on their F-16s, and they were coming
Let's get
back.
This moving. I think.
Yeah.
Let's get this movement. What about you, Michael? What else have you got to?
Well,
we got 200 more slides to go to.
Yeah, I got 200 more slides. That's okay. But just to get back to what Jim was talking about here. So when you're talking about Mach 25, there's really no Gs because it's a progressive acceleration. So you're really not feeling any Gs. But getting back to what Jim said, what Kelly Johnson said back in 1983 when speed costs money, how fast do you want to go? So he said we could go Mach 16 back in 1983. We already had the technology. So I did some real-time calculations here. Mach 16 is 12,276 miles per hour. That satisfies the criteria of anywhere in the world in less than 2 hours. So at that speed, you could do it. So that checks the boxes here.
Yep.
Yep.
And you're only going halfway around the world, so they make it an
That's
hour.
correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. All right, let's continue on here. So Lewis Center helps plan rocket plane. 12-minute New York to LA flights are foreseen. The plane dealer, December 7th, 1985. So even they're talking about these rapid trips here. Okay, how is the U.S. military going to get the funding for all these hypersonic aircraft programs? Simple. Bring in Reagan's defense buildup. That's how it was going to be funded, right? So between 1981 to 1985, we had a 4-year crescendo buildup within the military industrial complex. And so if you were a defense contractor and you had a new hypersonic aerospace program and you submitted a procurement for proposal, you got funded. You got funded because the Reagan's defense buildup, you could do this kind of thing back then. Let's continue on here. So then Ed talks about the debris at Roswell. And so what you have here, this is Mac Brazel at the Roswell debris field on the morning of July 3rd, 1947. He talks about this in his presentation here. And there was 3 types of debris. Really quickly, we'll go through this. Debris number 1 was this foil-like material that could not be cut, could not be burned, could not be dented with a 16-pound sledgehammer. Debris number 2 was this so-called memory metal, where you could kind of crinkle this metal up, you could let go of it in your palm, and then it would slowly basically unfurl and settle down like liquid mercury. And then debris number 3 were various lengths of what looked like I-beams with hieroglyphic type writing on the inside. So Ed is talking about this in his presentation. So then back to this plasma physics again. Rosetta Stone for a new source of energy and propulsion. So then I started digging here. Another one of Ed's friends who worked for General Dynamics in Fort Worth, Texas, described a top secret classified program he worked on during the mid-1960s, which involved a plasma accelerator, specifically dealing with gravity warping techniques. So here we've got this engineer friend who worked with Ed on programs. This guy worked at General Dynamics on a gravity warping accelerator program. So I wanted to see, is there any truth to this? Ed's contact describes working with a foil-like material that consisted of 12 layers of material less than 10,000 of an inch thick. He talks about this magnetic field disruptor, where they're pressurizing liquid mercury plasma, and they're doing it to 250,000 PSI. They're rotating it at 45,000 RPM. And this is talked about within the presentation here. Wichita Falls Times, July 26, 1964, search for new energy, source 7 years old. We'll continue on. 10 Texas private electrical companies began the research in a hunt for a cheaper electricity and a limitless source of power. Joined with them is General Dynamics. So that's checking the boxes with exactly what Ed is talking about. Here, they're saying back in 1964. So that is the mid-60s. That's checking with what Ed had talked about. Their work in 7 years has taken them into the world of plasma physics and into experiments with a bottle whose only sides are a magnetic field. So to contain this electromagnetic field, you set up this containment section with this high electromagnetic field. Let's continue on here. Northwest Arkansas Times, October 8th, 1971. University adds new members to facility. And they talk about Dr. Alan V. Larson, Corporation, General Atomics. And then it says here, electromagnetic pulse analysis section from 1961 until 1969. He was with General Dynamics Corporation plasma physics and propulsion sections. So here we have this General Dynamics engineer working on this plasma field propulsion experiment in the mid-1960s, exactly with what Ed is talking about here. Same article. And this is just a blow up here demonstrating that he was a General Dynamics employee working on the program. So then I ran across this document, which has this Alan V. Larson development of coaxial plasma gun for space propulsion. Going on here, project manager, NASA Lewis Research Center. So this is just documenting that they were working on these programs. Then from the Bill Scott collection, New Scientist, October 2000, it says here, they can reduce drag, repel shock waves, and make jet fighters vanish. Will plasma start an aerospace revolution, or are they just another mirage? So they're talking about plasma field physics here. But there are more clandestine applications. The way plasmas interact with radio waves around aircraft is causing more than a little excitement in the secret world of military aerospace research. Could they provide the ultimate invisibility shield for stealth aircraft? Other researchers have found that plasmas can dissipate shock waves from supersonic aircraft, stifling troublesome sonic booms. So now we're getting into this concept about these very high-speed aircraft where you have this plasma field applied around the leading edge of the aircraft to dissipate the shock waves, eliminating the sonic booms. So this is talked about within this literature. Then back to the Bill Scott collection, I ran across this article. This is AIAA 6 Aerospace Scientists Meeting, Electroaerodynamics and Supersonic Flow. And the date on this is back in 1968. They were already working on this. In this document, I'm going to go just read the upper abstract here. I think I've got this blown up. The research presented in this paper pertains to the effects of electrostatic fields on a charged flow of fluid around a body. The phenomenon was studied with wind tunnel tests and by hydraulic analogy tests. The results indicate that electrostatic forces can alter the flow pattern of a fluid, and it may be possible to attenuate the sonic boom. In addition, if the sonic boom is decreased, there may also be a wave drag reduction. So these two articles within these papers absolutely talk about them. This is in the mid-1960s, late 1960s, from Northrop Corporation, about taking away the sonic boom footprint. Here's the wind tunnel test results. So this is demonstrated technology. It's already a done deal. My question is, has this been implemented on our 5th and 6th generation stealth aircraft? So you've got F-22, F-35, B-2, B-21. Has it been implemented into these aircraft? Jim, what's your comment on this?
There's some speculation that the B-2 had some type of way to improve its low observability, and it was I don't know if it was plasma, but it's been rumored. I've been to Whiteman 5 times to shoot the B-2.
Okay.
And I've been up in the cockpit. I even flew the simulator. But I think if that technology were matured, it would be going into the B-21.
Are we actually talking about silent flight, where
Yep.
no sound whatsoever?
Yep.
Like UFOs, like it's up there, didn't make a sound, sort of thing.
Well, we're talking about implementing this technology on, say, the F-22, traveling at Mach 2.5. Then you would have this system where it would absolutely take out your sonic boom footprint. And so not only do you have radar stealth, you now have acoustic stealth. So you're taking out 2 of those 5 identifiers.
Well, basically, you're running silent.
Well, you have visible, you have audible, you have radar return,
infrared,
you have contrail.
Yes.
Hey, let's get back to an interesting story I read some time ago about the Foo Fighters with the plasma lights. They actually penetrated the skin of the bombers. They actually go through the shell and float around the inside and hover in front of each person's face
That's
like
right.
in an intelligent way.
Absolutely, absolutely. They emptied out multiple magazines of 50 caliber machine gun fire on this thing, and it made no effect to these. Absolutely. So
Yeah, but yeah, it had
yeah,
the intelligent movement to penetrate into the craft and hover in front of a person's face. Like, I'm having a look at you. Like, are you for real? Amazing,
I
absolutely amazing.
I think because of the power requirements for something like we're talking about,
okay.
the F-35 is limited to even some of the new software updates on block, with block fives, I think they are.
Anyway, guys, time
Because
is running on. So back to Michael, I think there, Jim.
okay,
That's
Don't
okay.
mind. Sorry
That's
for
all right.
cutting
All right.
you up there,
That's
buddy.
no problem.
Sorry,
We'll
Jim.
continue on here. We'll continue on here. Now, talking about the F-35, Bill Sweetman, $1 trillion train wreck. How the F-35 hollowed out the United States Air Force. This is a recent publication. Let's continue on here. The Burlington Free Press, June 30th, 2013, F-16 play co-designer to speak in Burlington. We're talking about Pierre Spray here.
he was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He hated the F-35. He was a piece of. He said it's a piece of crap.
The F-35, Spray said, is so poorly conceived that every plane purchased will be a detriment to national defense, both because of its poor design and because its high cost will drain resources from other Pentagon programs. The new plane, which has struggled with design and production issues, is described as the most expensive weapon system ever built. Former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates was a critic of the program's expense. Frequent critic Senator John McCain, representative from Arizona, in remarks on the Senate floor in December 2011, pointed to the rapidly rising costs of each plane and of the delays in production, and called the F-35 program both a scandal and a tragedy. Jim, comment?
Pierre, I mean, I had last time I was in D.C. with Jim Stevenson, we had dinner with Pierre, and he had absolutely nothing nice to say about the program. And he said if it was up to him, they'd cancel it right now.
Mm-hmm.
He said they built over 700 of them so far, and he said they should never build more than one, as far as he was concerned. He's the guy who wrote the specifications at age 24.
Ooh,
that gave us the A-10.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but he didn't like it. He hated the program. He just, I knew when he was coming up with a guy who really did not like it, I knew it was going to be Pierre.
That's right. Okay. We'll continue on here. At home as well as abroad, skepticism of F-35 persists. So here it says the latest dogfights took place in the past week. A former Pentagon official involved in the development of the F-16 and F-18 and A-10 aircraft in the 1970s said in influential defense publication that the F-35 is a dog. Newspapers in Australia, where the government's plan to eventually buy F-35s are a subject of intense political debate, reported that the planes were clubbed like baby seals in a computer-simulated war game conducted by the U.S. Air Force. Ooh, could this be true, Jim?
Yeah.
Clubbed like baby seals?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And it doesn't have the electrical generation capabilities to do what they said it's supposed to do. And it may take a different engine or something. I mean, they're at capacity as far as electrical output and areas where you can put put systems. So I don't know. It's
quite aware.
It's the answer to the Air Force.
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah,
sorry. Carry on, Joe.
It's the world's answer in the aviation world. Ford built their Edsel. We built the F-35.
I'm quite aware in Australia we tend to take on a lot of other people's stuff they don't want, but we have our own technologies we actually put in those aircrafts as well. So we do our own personal upgrades. Apparently, Australia is pretty good in their logistics and other areas, especially when they play war games. We seem to, with surveillance gears and stuff like that, we're pretty good on that. Apparently, I believe, what I have read, that NORAD defense system or computer systems and everything was actually designed in Queensland by an IT company. So we do have the technologies here. I mean, even though we might be a very kind of small population and way out of the way from everything, but we have a very close relationships with the USA. And yes, we do have our own technologies, but that's like everybody else. Everybody's got their little ace in the card, and then we keep it quiet. And remember, a lot of people don't realise too that we've got Australia's Area 51, which is Pine Gap in Australia here, and there's a lot of stuff happening there. A lot of UFO activities. Again, they reckon a lot of the stuff that's been taken out of Area 51 because it's got too much attention for tourism now. Now it's in Alice Springs in Australia here. So how much of that I do not know, but I know there's a lot of activity up in northern Queensland of UFOs. There are speculation and rumours I hear. I mean, then again, who knows if they're real or not? But the Secret Space Force have a base up in northern Queensland and also down in South America, I believe. So, but okay, that's another story for another day. But it's very interesting. We do have our own technology, so yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
good.
Carry on, Mike.
All right, let's continue on here. U.S. watchdog slams F-35 cost overruns. Calgary Herald, March 21st, 2012. Continue on. So I'm asking the question, have we all been played for fools regarding the F-35? Did a certain aerospace contractor use the F-35 as a sacrificial lamb to cover the cost of its real capabilities? Is there something very significant and secret about the F-35 that Congress and the American people have not been informed about? So is all this bad press a hoax? Is it a cover story for something else going on with the F-35? Have we all been played here? I just want to bring this up here. I just want to bring this question up here. Now, these are direct quotes from Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. You can't see them, okay? The F-35 fighter jet, which is almost like an invisible fighter, even if it's right next to it, it can't see it. It's very tough to beat a plane when you can't see it. Nobody has the equipment that we have. So these are statements by President Donald Trump. So is he trying to tell us something here? Is he giving us a little hint or a peek behind the curtain? There's something else going on with the F-35 that we haven't been told about here?
No.
No? Okay.
That's my feeling.
Okay. Is the invisibility cloak depicted in the Lord of the Rings series strictly fantasy, or has the technology progressed to make it a reality and integrate it into the 5th and 6th generation stealth aircraft? In other words, is Wonder Woman's invisible jet just a pipe dream? Okay, I'll just continue on here. So then I ran across this document. The Cheshire Jet, harnessing metamaterials to achieve an optical stealth capability. So in this publication, they give you all the technical backgrounds, they give you the references, the paperwork, the documentation on experiments of making visual optical stealth capability a reality in our stealth aircraft here. I'm not going to go through all the different reading on this, but how cloaking works to make something invisible, the nature of visibility must be understood. And they talk about visible light spectrum. We'll continue on here. Ahead of near-peer adversaries, the research will characterize the recent investments in metamaterials and highlight both the benefits and challenges to the U.S. Air Force obtaining an optical stealth capability. Conclusions drawn from this research will help shape DoD investments in metamaterials. So now they're talking about visible light spectrum. They're talking about integrating metamaterials into these technologies. Continuing on here, metamaterials and transformation optics. This is Air Force Research Laboratory, July 2011. And then within the figures here and the experiments and all the equations. Now, I am not a physicist. I am not smart enough to understand all the theoretical mathematician equations with all these papers, but I am smart enough to look at the paragraphs and detailed descriptions below this, just trying to understand how this physics actually works here. The figure in the lower left of the pane shows scattering of a 3D cloak, which is intrinsically more efficient than a cylindrical cloak, as evidenced by the lack of sensitivity to the inner boundary conditions. So they're already looking at this technology. Here's another one of these Air Force research laboratories. Parametrics of metamaterial structures used for invisible cloak realization. This is back in 2013, they were looking at this. Within this publication, they talk about the light wave, the spectrum analysis. So that's talked about here. Continuing on here. Metamaterials, new invisibility cloaks may make fighter jets invisible. Some metamaterials can bend visible light, infrared radiation, through a novel optical material that effectively means that they could act as an invisibility device. According to the CCTV broadcast, those materials are now being manufactured by an assembly line and will be used to help further China's aviation industry. In other words, we better get on the ball, or we already are there. What are metamaterials? In this case, we're talking about composite metals and plastics that use artificial geometry to influence the wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation, as well as elastic waves and sounds. Some metamaterials built using nanotechnology can also be used as super strength materials. In fact, optical metamaterials have already been used to demonstrate invisibility by redirecting visible light around itself to avoid reflection. Hence the frequent reference to popular fictions of cloaking in Star Trek and Harry Potter. This is exactly following what the Air Force Research Laboratory document talked about. Here we have new metamaterials yields invisibility for aircraft and drones. A lot of talk about drones the last 2 weeks. Electrical engineers from the University of California have created a new ultra-thin metamaterial that could provide a cloaking device and make UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, invisible. The new material creates invisibility and leaves no electronic, infrared, or visual signatures for enemies to detect. So if we could take this technology and integrate it into our aircraft, we would have a very interesting platform here. I'm not going to read all this, but just the top of it. By scattering the electromagnetic radiation in the visible infrared or radar spectrum, such metamaterial will be able to render a coded object undetectable in the wave frequencies by forcing light or radar waves to bypass the object surface through coding, which effectively cloaks the object. Continuing on here. Now you see it, now you don't. Blinding us with science, the next generation of stealth. Researchers are examining ways to blur an aircraft's outline by using recently created branch of nanotechnology known as metamaterials. Ordinary metals, plastics, and other materials combine in a way that alters their response to light, heat, radio waves, and other forms of electromagnetic radiation. In particular, researchers discovered that metamaterials can bend light in waves that no naturally occurring material can do, even backwards. It's the ability that could allow a coating of metamaterials to smear an airplane's outline. Okay, let's continue on here. Metaskin truly cloaks objects from radar. Engineers created a flexible, stretchy material that suppresses radar, effectively cloaking whatever it covers. From Star Trek to science, BAE Systems, so they're getting on board with this technology. Latest offering, the adaptive invisibility cloak, follows the high-tech active camouflage model. BAE Systems' latest offering, and they're talking about it, also holds the potential to extend this ability in other parts of electromagnetic spectrum. Could military planes be getting invisibility cloaks? Air Force General calls on defense industry to develop Star Trek-style device. So where am I going with all this? Now that we've presented the technical publications, we've got the scientific papers from the Air Force Research Laboratory, where am I going with all of this? So this is an email that I got from a contact. This has been about 7 years now. I will not name him. I will not provide the contact info, so we'll keep his identity under wraps. Here's what he wrote to me. Michael, so I have talked to a worker at Hill Air Force Base, and he gave me a tip. I pursued this as far as I can, and you have better sources and context, so I want to pass it on to you. He said the F-35 has a big secret, and he pointed me to a quote by President Trump's comments, "We have invisible jets." What he told me was that he wasn't talking about radar invisibility. That was all he gave me. It's not electrochromatic paneling, but has to do with laser machining coatings of metamaterials and then a gold sphere applied to the top of billions of micro pyramidal shapes. Then a charge is applied across the coating of the aircraft. And what I suspect happens is it creates an optical invisibility above a certain altitude. Hopefully that's a good tip for you to follow up on. Jim, any comments on this?
The military has been working on active camouflage for 40 years, maybe a little bit longer. And one of the things that was talked about, and this is back in the late 90s, is thin film technology has gotten to a point where it can only be just a few atoms thick on a piece of material they can put over a surface, and it will, if you're looking from the bottom, it will reflect, it will show you what the airplane sees on top. If it's above, it's just, if you look down, you would see pastures or city, landscapes or whatever. You wouldn't see the airplane. So that is, and that requires power, and that requires, it probably would reduce its radar cross section a bit. But one thing a guy told me, and he said, I'm not going to tell you anything more.
Right.
But the F-35 is not what you think it is.
Okay.
He said it's really a information gathering and distributing node.
It's its own AWACS, right? Its own AWACS, essentially.
Yeah, and it does things, and he wouldn't tell me what it does, but he said if you had the ability to realize and learn what this thing can do, you would go. I mean, it would blow your socks off.
Jim, in your professional assessment, do you believe that it's even conceivable that some of the F-35s incorporate this technology?
I mean, they're constantly upgrading and improving the F-35, so I would have to say there's the possibility of it being a reality. There's a possibility.
There's a possibility. Okay.
Yeah, and don't forget stuff that our government shows us on far as gee whiz technology.
Right.
Is usually 20 or 30 years old when we, the people who funded it, finally get a chance to see it.
That's right. That's right. Let's continue on here. We'll do one more on this one here. This is another interesting account here. Michael Schratt, I need your help. I'm so completely baffled by what I encountered yesterday. I just don't know where to start. This was not a UFO, but a jet that was exhibiting very strange, counterintuitive features and technology. First, I need to explain where I live and what I was doing when I had the encounter. I live roughly 1.5 miles away as the crow flies from Hill Air Force Base in South Ogden, Utah. I was out jogging. There's a trail roughly 1/2 mile directly north of the base and the landing approach runway. This trail follows along I-84. You can look at Google Earth to see what I'm talking about. It's down in a little canyon. If you don't know Hill Air Force Base, well, sits on a hill, hence the name, I think. So here's the crux of the story. I was running directly west along this path. The sun was going down, but it was still light. I was running through AM area of trees when I heard a sound that sounded like 2 rather large electrical engines. I'm sure you know the sound I'm talking about. As I got into a clearing, I saw 2 jets hovering at no more than 150 feet off the ground between the center dividing line of the highway. There wasn't any traffic, so I could clearly hear and see these two, just the divider line, and about 25 to 50 yards wide. What threw me off is the jets did not sound like jets, and I'm very familiar with the jets at Hill. These two were absolutely not F-35s because they clearly had two engines on each aircraft. They were so close to the ground that I could see the pilots making hand gestures. They were clearly talking to each other. This jet looked like a more sleek version of the F-22, lower profile, smooth rounded edges, looked smaller and more compact, but I'm not sure about the actual size comparison. So it gets even more strange. They were hovering, making a higher pitch electrical-like sound, not typical jet engines. The thrust vector nozzles were not pointed down. I'll repeat that they absolutely were not pointed down. This left me really scratching my head. They sat there for about a minute and a half hovering. I was kicking myself because I had forgot my phone back in the gym bag in the trunk of my car, and I had left the gym and went to go do my daily running. It gets even more crazy whether you want to believe this or not, and I'm still here doubting what I saw, but it was getting lower, light obviously still visible, but I could sworn that these were a bluish hue around the craft, but I don't know whether it was because of the lighting or I just don't know. Have you heard of anything? So, Jim, here they're talking about like a modern version of the F-22 at Hill Air Force Base that was hovering off the ground, emitting this strange noise and this blue coronal discharge along the leading portion of the aircraft. What could we be dealing with here, Jim?
A UFO. I mean, there's so much technology that's being kicked around and used within the military. Again, we as the American taxpayer is the ones who funds all these projects, and we're not privy to them until either the programs are canceled or they go operational, one of the two. Mm-hmm. And even some of the airplanes that go operational, they'll be operational for say 15 years and then retired for 20 before they ever admit the existence. And I'm referring to the A-12 Blackbird as that. Right, so right. There's rumblings that there's another place that is a counterpart to Area 51 would be Dugway, the Dugway Proving Grounds. That area has been off limits to the world forever because they've tested nerve gas and other really, really nasty agents out there because Dugway is in the middle of nowhere. And they figure by the time some of the poison gases they've utilized, by the time they get blown into a populated area, it's only a few molecules here and there, and there's no allegedly there's no threat to the general populace.
So I followed up with this gentleman and I asked him, could you please draw me a pencil sketch of what you saw? And he did. So here is his pencil sketch of what this craft looked like. It does look like a modern F-22 with twin canted vertical stabilizers, but a much lower angle of attack. And the air intakes are more integrated into the smooth contouring upper fuselage, wing root to fuselage joint. That's something that differs. Now, there were two of these things side by side hovering off the ground. Wow. At Hill Air Force Base with this blue coronal discharge. Let me go to the next one here. Here's what they look like side by side, according to this witness. And then, of course, I had to do kind of a rendering of what this thing may have looked like hovering. And then this is very similar to what has already been proposed. This is something that's already out within. So this is tracking with what this guy is describing here. I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. Sure. Going on to a little bit back to Ed here, and we'll continue on for a little bit further here. From 1973 to 1976, Ed worked on aircraft programs at Edwards Air Force Base. B-2 stealth bomber tested at Edwards Air Force Base. Now, when the B-2 was rolled out, November 22nd, 1988, newspaper reporters that kind of had a pass to get in here, they described the rollout and the B-2 as stealth bomber, Darth Vader and shoulder pads. That's how the B-2 was described. Let's go to another one here. So it was also known as Darth Vader peeking over a fence. This is also what the B-2 was described at. People within the inside kind of had this joke here. Let's continue on. Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider, official rollout December 2nd, 2022. Now, Los Angeles Times, December 3rd, 2022, new B-21 Raider makes its grand debut. Here is where I'm kind of talking and leading up here. Northrop Grumman sign heading north on Highway 14 towards Edwards Air Force Base. It says it's detectable until it's not. Is there something else going on here with the B-21? Are they talking about only radar invisibility, or are they talking about,
No, they were talking about full spectrum. I mean, I asked, I can't remember his name now. I'm terrible on names. I was going to do a book signing there at the B-2 production facility, but because Rosemary's Alzheimer's, I can't be gone very long. But I asked him, I said, any chance of me seeing the B-21? He said, hey, I've been here for 42 years. I haven't even seen it.
Really?
And he's the one who's responsible for all public events for Northrop Grumman.
But building on the technology of the B-2, okay, so rollout November 22nd, 1988. We're so far down the line now, you would think that they'd want to have daytime stealth capability where you don't have to wait till the sun goes down and a moonless night. You want to be able to have this real-time force application no matter what time of the day it is. That's what I think that they're referring to here. What is Northrop Grumman trying to tell us? Are they only referring to radar stealth?
No.
So then we go to this article, Popular Science, May 1997, where they're talking about invisible aircraft. So this is what these aircraft look like. So they're electrically transferring the image of what's in back of the aircraft toward the upper side, allowing it to blend in with its background. Here is the cutaway of the detail here. Disappearing at future aircraft such as Lockheed Martin's proposed Joint Strike Fighter, in other words, the F-35, might use visual stealth to blend into the sky. Sensors would measure the sky's brightness and hue, and electrochromic coatings applied over a white skin would change shade to match the background. So this is a 1997 article. You throw in billions of dollars into the procurement, funding, research, and development. I think we're there. I really think we're there.
I think so too, because the active coatings I told you about, we mentioned just a few minutes ago, basically this.
Okay. U.S. Air Force XB-70, 1964. This is all at Edwards. We're a little bit back to Ed here. Now, he worked on the following programs: F-111, F-15, A-10, F-16 Fighting Falcon, and B-1 Bomber. Now, instead of me just telling you what he worked on, let me show you what he worked on. We're going to rip through these quickly here. So F-111.
The F-111.
Interesting story on the F-111. It's a desired, acquired taste. I still like the F-111. Now, it's had a lot of negative talk about it. And in congressional hearings back in 1968, it says here, quote, there isn't enough thrust in Christendom to fix this plane. 3-star U.S. Navy Admiral Thomas Connolly during 1968 congressional hearings. I just thought interesting backstory on the F-111. He worked on the F-15 Eagle. He worked on the F-16 Fighting Falcon. He worked on the A-10 Warthog and the B-1 Bomber, just some of the programs that Ed had worked on. In the summer of 1976, Ed moved to Nellis Air Force Base and spent 3.5 years working on a F-15 electronic countermeasure equipment. Continuing on. Then he got a call to work at Groom Lake Area 51. We're going to pick up the story here. Ed maintained a top secret crypto clearance and spent time working at Area 51. He would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and board a blue-colored Air Force bus with blacked-out windows, which would take him to Area 51. There were 28 other people on the bus, including 2 security guards with M16s and a bus driver. All personnel on the bus were specifically given 3 words, do not speak. That was the order that you got when you were on this bus. I mean, you're not allowed to talk to anyone. Now, he also said in this presentation that as he was riding on this bus, the silt and sand started cracking through the door and the windows. He could tell he was out in the desert. He absolutely could tell he was going out in the desert here. So Sun Journal, August 17, 2013. So this is 2013. CIA finally admits Area 51 exists. So from the time that Kelly Johnson dropped the shot balls onto the dry lake bed at Groom to 2013, they didn't even acknowledge this place existed. Jim, comment?
Well, they still don't.
Yeah.
When you know, I don't think it was officially Air Force, but when it was announced that there was a secret base just 100 miles north of Las Vegas, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a Nevada test site, and it was a very well written piece, but it didn't tell you anything. So I actually had a copy of the piece, and I went to the wing headquarters at Nellis and said, "Could you do me a favor? Could you copy this on official Nellis base commander or 57th Wing commander's stationery and have him sign it?" They ordered me out of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was an unofficial admittance that Area 51 exists. But they still want to play stupid ass games for it. So
okay, all right. Okay, Peter Merlin wrote a recent book, Dreamland: The Secret History of Area 51. Very good publication. So I want to give credit to Peter for this book. U-2 spy plane flights took place at Area 51 August 1st, 1955. SR-71 flight at Area 51 December 22nd, 1964. And Jim, you know the original test pilot.
Yeah, Lou Schock. December 22nd, 1964 was the first flight of the SR-71, but it was taken it took off at Palmdale.
Okay.
Yeah, it was built at Burbank. They trucked all this stuff to Palmdale, and they put the airplane together once it got to Palmdale. The Lou Schock flew the first A-12 on the 26th of April, 1962. And it wasn't supposed to fly until the 28th or 29th. But Kelly had made a mistake on, at what speed does the airplane want to fly? And they were getting up to about 75 knots. And all of a sudden, Lou found himself in the air. They didn't have much fuel on board, so it was a fairly light airplane. And they had the stabilization augmentation system turned off. So he was all over. I mean, literally, he was, the rudders are going back and forth. He was all over the sky, blowing up dust because they were just at takeoff. Kelly thought that Lou had crashed the airplane. They're calling him saying, "You okay? You okay?" He's responding. His antenna for receiving VHF's, whatever it is, UHF signal radio transmissions on the top of the airplane, but him transmitting was on an antenna on the bottom of the airplane. And he was always in this line of sight, and he was always just a little bit below line of sight because that area is sort of domed. So Kelly thought he lost the airplane. And next thing you know, he finally get it on the ground, and he's taxiing through the dust that's been blown up. And as it comes out, it was almost like it was a movie preview as it comes out of the cloud of dust on his, on the ground, taxiing. So,
okay. Continue on here. So, have Blue first flight at Area 51 on December 1st, 1977.
Yeah,
and we'll continue on here. Here's this is 3/4 front view looking on the right side of the aircraft. And then after both Have Blue proof of concept prototypes crashed, they were buried at Area 51, never to be seen by human eyes again. Jim, comment?
Correct.
Correct? Yes.
One of the things that Bill Foxy was a guy who spent 10 years at Area 51, and he's the one I got most of my A-12 production shots from. And he said there was, the Air Force Museum wanted to have a Have Blue on display. It has T-38 landing gear, and that's probably the most difficult thing to replicate. Everything are flat panels, and they were going to dig up both Have Blues.
Okay.
They knew where one of them was, and the other one, Foxy said that they believed that they built a road over where it crashed. They dug a hole and buried it, and then later on, they put a new road in somewhere, and it went over the spot where where Have Blue #2 is buried. That was one that Ken Dyson was in.
Two questions, Jim. Is there anyone living today that knows where the two aircraft are buried plus or minus 5 feet?
No.
One
of them, yes. That's the one Bill Park crashed in. He had a bail out of. The one that Ken Dyson had a bail out of, maybe within a quarter of a mile.
We're never going to find that one. No. And then the other question has a air vehicle #3, was an air vehicle #3 built for Have Blue, or just the two?
No, just the two.
Because I have heard from a pretty reliable source that they built a third Have Blue. And any truth to that at all?
No, they may have been building a mock-up one for the Air Force Museum, but that was it. Now, the Have Blue RCS model that they had at Hellendale and also out at the RAT scan there at Holloman in New Mexico, that's now on exhibit at the Air Force Museum.
Okay.
Yeah. I even got to touch it.
Ooh, okay. Daily Free Press, April 5th, 2001, secrets buried at Area 51. So this just tracks exactly what we were talking about. A lot of things were buried there. A lot of things went into the burn pits there. They had paperwork, they had documents, they had 3-ring binders where diesel fuel was poured into these burn pits. That caused a lot of lawsuits, but it wasn't just aircraft that were buried. They actually buried and destroyed technical manuals, 3-ring binders, things that went with the programs. All this stuff was burned up.
They were burning up the suits that the A-12 pilots used.
No, really?
Yeah, and one of the reasons that caused the big lawsuit back in the 90s is the stuff they were burning. They were also burning, excess RAM.
Okay.
The RAM coatings used on the F-117 when it was during flight test at Area 51, and that's the stuff that was causing people to come down with cancer. And it's probably one of the reasons why Ben Rich contracted esophageal cancer, because they were using those chemicals in Burbank, and they were using them while he was still the boss of the Skunk Works.
That's right. Okay. First flight of the F-117, June 18th, 1981. This is one of Ed's slides where he comments that it kind of does have this very interesting front view at night. The silhouette is very interesting.
First time I saw it, it looked just like a UFO head on.
It looked like a UFO.
Yeah.
How did Lockheed secretly transport the F-117 from the Skunk Works building at Burbank Airport to Groom Lake? Jim, can you point out where the Skunk Works building was on this photograph?
Okay.
And they took out hangars, gone now, but where were the hangars?
Okay, the hangars. If you look at the runway that's going horizontal, versus on an angle. If you look to the right hand side, you'll see a green spot.
Yeah.
And then you see a pretty much empty area.
Yes.
That's where the original production facilities were.
Really? Okay, so that's where the U-2, the Blackbird, and the F-117 were built?
Yep.
Wow, so historic. Why tear those things down? Why not make a museum? Why not take the hangars, move them to a place in Los Angeles to preserve our history?
Because the cladding of the hangar was asbestos tiles,
Okay.
asbestos impregnant.
Okay.
And because I said, if Lockheed could have made a ton of money just by taking pieces off that building official, and they could, in case if they're radioactive or they figure they might have some asbestos in them, encase them in acrylic.
Yes.
So they're sealed. And they could have made millions of dollars.
Millions. Oh yes, totally.
But they didn't. So
that killed. All right. Well, I'm glad I know exactly where this was now. All right, let's go to the next one. It's a dark secret in California skies. The Macon Telegraph, December 14th, 1986. In this article, I'm going to go to the next slide here. They talk about how C-5 Galaxy cargo transport aircraft would land at Burbank Airport at 10 p.m. on Friday nights. Upon arrival, all lights associated with the Skunk Works building were turned off. The C-5 would taxi up to the aircraft hangar, and two 18-wheeler trucks would provide cover to protect the loading of the F-117 from prying eyes stationed along the airport's chain-link fence. Comment, Jim?
Yeah, that's how they moved all of them. And you take the wings off. I mean, I moved a Blackbird in the C-5.
That's right.
So I beat them to it. No, they.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, they would turn off the runway lights as well. So I mean, what it was a big flag saying, "Hey, you got some night vision stuff. Skunk Works is loading something tonight because we're not. All the lights are turned off at Skunk Works, and the runway and the airport lights were turned off."
Okay.
So I mean, that's one of the reasons there's supposed to be a new classified base in the extreme northeast corner of Nevada, and they were going to make it a restricted area. But as soon as you announce there's a new restricted airspace, all of a sudden people like me go, "Oh, I know where I'm going next."
Okay.
So they didn't do it.
Well, right now we're at the 2-hour mark, and we haven't even scratched the surface. You're the leader. You call the shot. We can make a part 2, but I just wanted to say that we're kind of all building up to this. We can certainly do it another thing later, but that's kind of where we're standing right now. I've got so much more to go.
That sounds like a plan, Michael. That sounds like a plan. We'll do a part 2 to this. And look, this is the most easy show I've ever done. I've just had to sit back and enjoy it all, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It's because we don't have to listen to you.
Oh,
I know.
Hey, we love
Michael,
you.
I have to put up with Jim and Robert Bauer from Next Cast, from the Geezer Geeks. And I tell you, they pick on me. They pick on me all the time.
Before we sign off, I want to send a shout out to the Cousin Brothers and mention that Jim and I and myself were featured in their new documentary Battle for Disclosure, and I just want to give a shout out to the Cousin Brothers.
And the Cousin Brothers, the Cousin Brothers are two of the most unique people. They're two human beings with one brain. I mean, they're identical.
Hey, Third Phase Moon, mate. They are brilliant. They do marvelous work. They do a lot of documentaries for Dr. Stephen Greer and for the Disclosure Project. And I really kind of admire what they do. As I've said before, the Cousin Brothers always stuck to their grassroots with ufology, and they keep their documentary sides a little bit separate to their grassroots, which is good. They haven't lost track, and I totally respect those brothers. I really do, very much so.
Yeah,
and I've been following them for a long, long time, and
I didn't know who they were. I mean, I'd heard of them and I knew of them, but I had this, this idea of what they were, and then I finally met them, and God, I mean, they're just like me. They're crazy.
And everybody can actually follow Michael Schratt on Michael Schratt's podcast. It used to be the Blue Room, wasn't it? Michael?
Yeah, it was the Blue Room, but my YouTube channel is just my name, Michael Schratt. That's it.
Yeah, Michael Schratt. Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
I know that. And I
and
watch it
no
all the
one
time.
does
And
no one does it better than Michael.
You're very kind,
Oh,
Jim. You're very kind. Checks in the mail.
I totally agree with you there. And mate, look, thank you guys. I much appreciate it. I will be in touch with you there, Michael. It's sometime very soon in the near future. We'll do a part 2 on this. And thank you very much, James, for
My pleasure.
for your input. And I've totally enjoyed listening to your stories. And you are a book of knowledge, my friend, a book of knowledge. And I can see why you are the historian. And if you're any more of a historian, mate, but you'll be in a museum yourself.
I'm old enough. So
Yeah, we know that, Jim.
To everybody who's listening to this, to you, Terry, to Michael, you guys have a wonderful Merry Christmas.
Yes.
And
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Here's to full disclosure in 2025.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
There you go.
No, well, let's not call it disclosure. Let's call it exposure, as Robert would say.
That
Exposure.
too.
Get down to the truth of it all. That's exactly right. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, be nice, be kind, and aspire to inspire one another. And as my good friend Doc Skinner would say, let's kind of lift each other up so we can all rise together. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye now.
Okay.
And thank you, everybody. And now that all my guests have gone, and I much appreciate you guys joining us today. And look, remember, just give a shout out, tickle that little button, like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you all next time. Catch you later now. This is Mr. B signing out. Bye-bye now.